Hello, and welcome to Jung at HARP. Normally, I'm here with Kathleen Wiley, but she's not here today, and I just wanted to create a continuum. So, this is episode number 173 and a half. Kathleen will be back with me next week, and I want to talk about interims, and I want to talk about, each week we meet in this space where psyche meets music on the playground of life to talk about transformation, to talk about connection, to talk about what each of us does in our work. Kathleen is a Jungian psychoanalyst. I am a composer and a performer, and we both play the harp, and that's how we met. And so we call this Jung at HARP. And I think one of the reasons we do that is because we're looking for will speak for myself that I discovered transformation in my life, not just through, whatever I'm thinking about, but also through playing. And it's one of the things that I am teaching when I teach is is sort of creating a space. There's so many different ways that we can approach an instrument, and we can approach it. And I think I've approached them in pretty much all of them. In the beginning, I approached the harp as a challenge, something to achieve, and a way to prove myself to myself and to others, to prove that I was a real musician. And then, as I've gotten older, I've discovered that it is a place where I can not just practice to get things, to get it right, to get facility, but I can take it on as a practice to let it get to me. And so that's something that I teach in my academy. It's something that I do for myself. It's something that I talk about. Transformation is fascinating to me. And because Kathleen isn't here today, I'm hoping that even more than usual, you will jump into the conversation, because one of the things that we love about this platform is that we can actually have a conversation. That means we don't come with answers, we come with questions. And my question today is, what's in the interim? What's in the interim when you are transforming part of your life? Say you've gone back to school, or you're in a recovery program, or you're healing from a disease, or you're taking on a creativity practice. What is in that interim? What do you let go of? What do you build up? How do you do it? So I can pull up the chat, and you can actually chat with me. So you will be part of the conversation. And I'm obsessing over the fact that, that's how it is. You can see all my books over there now. So I was talking to someone this morning, and they mentioned a quote from Jung. And I was like, well, how handy is that? Since Kathleen can't be here today, let me take a look and see if I can find that quote. And the quote was, it was actually in the context of alcoholism. It was of somebody who was not able to recover. I don't remember the exact context, but they had gone to seek help with Carl Jung. And then there was some, I think, okay, I don't have this right, but the story was something like this person could not recover. It wasn't going to happen. And the doctor said to him, you're not going to recover. It's not going to happen. You better just put yourself under lock and key, because that's how it's going to be. And I'm saying that because, wow, how stark is that? And how often do we feel like, however we are, that's the way we are. It's not going to change. Nothing is going to transform. And so I'm thinking about it. And if you can just make sure, if you're here, if you can let me know if you can hear me, that would be great, because I don't know whether you can hear me or not. So anyway, I often like to go back and kind of think biologically. I like to imagine the experience of a caterpillar, which then becomes a chrysalis. It literally becomes a chrysalis, and then it becomes a butterfly. So these three things, we think of them as three things. We see them as three things. We see a caterpillar, we see a chrysalis, we see a butterfly. Up until a couple of days ago, I thought that the caterpillar went into a chrysalis, but in fact, the chrysalis is a living form of that same creature. That creature is a larva, and then it's a pupa, and then it's like the imago, the final version of itself. And so I like to think about myself that way. And I'm often think about what would happen if at any stage of this, the creature holds on to its past. If it holds on to its past through regret, or through wishing things were different, or through trying to change the past, or it isn't in the present, it's looking to the future, like this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. What would happen to that creature in terms of transformation if it held on to what it was rather than allowing itself to dissolve and transform into something it can't even imagine? Aha. Hello. Great to see you. Hi, Rose. And I'm assuming you can hear me, or you wouldn't have written. So thank you for writing in. So we're talking about transformation, and we're talking about something that someone read to me this morning. There was a really interesting quote, and I found it. And it happens in the context of alcoholism. So it happens in the context of addiction, and someone kind of hearing from the doctor, who, if I got this right, was Carl Jung, that he was basically hopeless. It wasn't gonna change. And so he said something like that: is there no exception? I mean, the doctor said, you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I've never seen one single case recover where the state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you. And that was really interesting to me, because I thought, I just think about, what is my state of mind? What is the state of mind that I hold on to? And it's often interesting to look to alcoholism or other addictions, just like it's really interesting, helpful to me to look to butterflies or caterpillars, to look at situations where the transformation and where all the emotions, in the one where all the emotions are out in the open, it's like nobody's pretending that this isn't happening. And as opposed to me, where I might pretend that, no, I'm not stuck in my past. I'm not holding myself back by this or that. So this was really interesting to me, because Jung apparently was saying, you're not going to change. That's it. It's over for you. And so he says, isn't there no exception to this? And this is what was really interesting to me. So yes, replied the doctor, there is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, they're saying alcoholics have had what is called a vital spiritual experiences. And this is, to me, these occurrences are phenomena. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. This is what I love about this description. And again, I'm speaking because Kathleen's not here today, so I found a quote. I'm talking to the quote. And so the quote is saying, supposedly from Jung, the occurrence of actual ability to disconnect from an addiction, or not have to live within it. I'm not even I don't even know the words to use, but to not be stuck in a prison by yourself. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. And why I love that is because this concept of displacement and rearrangement is really what I see in the caterpillar and the chrysalis and the butterfly. But I'd never heard it and I was always thinking, like, well, how is that in humans? Like, how is that in humans? And so then this quote goes on to say, ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these people, are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begins to dominate them. Trying to produce, and then he goes on to say, in fact, I've been trying to produce exactly that same rearrangement in you. This idea of a complete displacement and rearrangement that could be in a human as dramatic as we see it in, the caterpillar, the chrysalis, the butterfly. I'm curious about that. I mean, I'm curious if anybody here has experienced this. It's really interesting. We have one. Oh, I can see that one person is watching, and usually we have a lot more. And I had a problem sending this out on the stream, so I don't know if it's actually going out to people. So anyway, I don't know if you will be able to comment on this. So the main thing that I want to do is say, Kathleen's not here this week, but Jung at HARP still goes on. And this is episode 173.5. So it probably won't get onto the podcast. But I'm here to just say we're here and to continue the conversation about transformation. So the conversation that I'm really interested in, or the thing that I'm looking at and that I had not seen anybody talk about, is exactly what Jung was saying here, the rearrangement and displacement. And it just makes me think of I know that in the chrysalis, what happens with the caterpillar is that its final shedding of its skin actually becomes the chrysalis. So the chrysalis is truly just another form. They don't usually talk about it like that, but it is its skin, and the chrysalis is a breathing thing. It's a form of the creature. The DNA is the same throughout all. It never changes. The DNA never changes, but the form of the creature changes. And so my question is, what is the huge displacement and rearrangement that I might experience in myself? And what might be the chrysalis that is part of me? A living, breathing, it's not a part of me, it's me. I mean, the chrysalis is simply the skin of the caterpillar, but different. And so I also find it interesting to think about it in terms of, what could I take on? And Kathleen talks about this a lot, about a container. What creative container could I take on in which there might be a complete displacement and rearrangement? And it's interesting because as I say this out loud, I'm thinking about what we were doing in Hip Harp Academy yesterday, and I'm going to show you. Victoria says, yeah, good question. And what we were doing is, just for fun, we took one of the classic harp pieces, and we were looking at, I realize now, we were looking at displacement and rearrangement of it. So the famous harp piece, and I'm not going to play it in the key that it's in. I'm going to play it in it's doing, my thing is doing this. I don't know if you can hear this, but so the piece goes like this. It's like a melody. So melody up here. I don't know why my thing keeps going off, but I can see that it does keep kind of going on and off. Okay, hopefully if I stand perfectly still, it won't. Melody, accompaniment, bass line, melody, something like this. And then it goes on and on. But we were just playing with that one part. And we were thinking, okay, so if you take it out of its context, then you can do all kinds of things, because then it's like, okay, well, it's a melody. And then some kind of bass line and some kind of chord, same melody. Okay, so I could go. So now I'm shifting, I'm playing a different melody, but it's in the same kind of vein, and I'm kind of doing the chords differently, but in the same vein. I'm going to slow it down so I can think. So I could go, so. pretty much in its form. But then what if I go? Now it's started to really shift. In my mind, however, I'm still playing with the same idea, and then I take the same idea, put it in the minor, then I come back. Now I'm changing the harmony. And now I'm again. Now I'm playing with it. I'm displacing it. I'm rearranging it. And if I were to do it for like 5 minutes without stopping, who knows where it might go. I have it that if people take on a simple practice, and I teach much simpler structures in the academy, but I have it that if you take on a simple structure and play it over and over and over again, that displacement and rearrangement, which I think is creativity, is the expansion of creativity, that's what happens. It's a natural thing. Now, when I teach something in the academy, I might teach something simple like this. I might teach a chord progression that's hello. One moment, please. Okay. All right. I don't know where oh, that's where it is. Okay. All right. I see where the issue is. Okay. So the chord progression could be this. And it's got a kind of a rhythm to it, which is C, then A, then F, then D, then G, and G, and G, and G. And so this can become now it morphed. But the 8-bar phrase stayed the same. And now I'm back. So there's a core. There's some kind of core that's holding me. I call it grounded expansion, starting with something very, very, very simple and allowing it to expand. But after reading this morning about the displacement and the rearrangement, I started thinking, I'm thinking it as we speak, like displacement and rearrangement. What is that? That happens in the caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly. It's still the same creature, same DNA. Displacement and rearrangement goes from something that crawls to something that is completely dissolved, that's static, to something that flies. And so if I take on, for example, if I start with a chord progression like that, what are all the things that it is? In the beginning, I may think that it's specific notes. And then I may begin to realize that it's some kind of organization of 8 beats of something. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, or measures of time. So those measures of time are what are holding me. And within that, I can dissolve. At first, it's the structure that's kind of the thing that's left. But then that can change. And what's left is the 8 bar, the sense of the 8 measures. Where else could it go? So all that was left there was just the 8, the sense of the measures. Then the structure was there, even though it was completely displaced and rearranged. So my question about human transformation versus, Lepidopteran, which is what that whole creature is called, Lepidopteran, I think is the word, transformation, and musical transformation. So those are the 2 lenses I have to look at, the Lepidopteran and the musical. What does it tell me about human transformation? What stays the same? What is it? What is it? A complete a displacement and rearrangement of. And Victoria's saying the container is elastic. Like you said, it expands. I think to dissolve, we need to let go of what we believe is right or comfortable. Yeah, yes. And I would say, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, who I believe I am, what I believe is possible, and really who I'm holding myself to being. And then Victoria says, otherwise, so she's saying the container is elastic. It expands. To dissolve, we need to let go of what we believe is right or comfortable. Otherwise, I'm not sure exactly. It says otherwise we can rearrange. And that may be a typo there, but let's pretend it isn't. Otherwise, we are rearrange. I mean, just let's think of it that way. Otherwise, we are rearrange, or otherwise we can rearrange. Otherwise we cannot rearrange it. Right. If we don't dissolve or let go of what we believe is right or comfortable, if we don't let go of who we believe ourselves to be. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about it in the context here. I'm thinking that this was what he was talking about was in the context of, a hopeless alcoholic. So someone who just is like, hey, I see that I'm in this, I see that I'm here, I can't get out. Which, once again, reminds me of the play that I wrote, The Golden Cage. I see that I keep being fascinated by the same story. The same story of being trapped in an experience of myself that I understand I am holding on to, and yet do not know how to let go of. And I think one of the things that I really love about the story of the butterfly and the chrysalis is that while the butterfly, well, of course we don't know this, and I'm just telling you what I've been researching recently, and then kind of what I've made up about it. So I have no basis in fact, and I have not interviewed any caterpillars, butterflies, or chrysalises. But standing from the standpoint of a caterpillar, there's no, which is where I feel I'm often standing. I cannot imagine flying. And because I look at myself and I'm like, with what? With what? Not knowing that that thing is inside of me, that imaginal disc that has everything that creates me as a flying thing is within me, and it's inaccessible when I have not dissolved. Because what happens in the chrysalis is the caterpillar dissolves, and then it becomes the nutrient that this imaginal disc uses, or that somehow it happens, that then the new form. I don't know. This is good. Thank you, Victoria. So this is why I love the conversation. I don't know the answer to this. Victoria says, being put inside a container can be scary or comforting. How we perceive the experience of being in a container makes a difference. Mindset matters. Well, it's very interesting, because as I was reading this, I was thinking, well, being a caterpillar is a container, and it's uncomfortable. I don't know if it's uncomfortable. I would be uncomfortable if I woke up, and I'm assuming that's part of what, I haven't really read Kafka's Metamorphosis, but I'm assuming that's part of what happens, that he wakes up and is pretty uncomfortable to being a cockroach. But one of the things that I notice about communities, so I am in communities in which people are transforming, and I've created a community, HARP Academy, and I observe people transforming within this container. And it seems like the characteristics of the container in which transformation is possible are safety. For me, it's being able to see other people who are colleagues, not other people who are like, hello, I'm going to tell you how to transform. Let me tell you. But who are themselves engaged in the experience of transformation of some sort, whatever it may be, spiritual transformation, or business transformation, or a creative transformation. And watching how, when we shift out of the world of competition, where we have to look at people and either try to do as well as them, or make friends with them, or something, out into a world in which there's some kind of odd relationship with them. But then when we can look at them as ourselves, as actually, it's kind of like a novel. Like, I noticed that one of the reasons I love a novel is because, wow, it's almost like I got to live another life, and I have all these experiences that I now have that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't read this novel. And it's the same when I get to hear other people's stories, their real story in the moment that they're having. And I think this is what I see in the Academy, that people are sharing both their breakthroughs, and they're also sharing when something doesn't work for them, or when they're stuck. And then other people then can, some brave person is like, yeah, I did all this stuff, but it's just not working for me. And then we can see we're not alone. And then we get more courage within that container. So part of what I'm hearing is the containerness. And I'm going to see a beehive. Interesting. A beehive. Yeah. Except I think of a beehive as being a single animal. That is such a great thing, because a beehive really is not meant for transformation. It's kind of meant for perpetuation. That's really fascinating, that there are containers for perpetuation, and communities for perpetuation, and communities specifically for transformation. I'm going to go back to this thing for the huge emotional displacements and rearrangements, or huge creative displacements and rearrangements. And I'm pretty sure that if we have a huge creative displacement or rearrangement, that it's also happening on many other levels as well, spiritual, whatever. But there's also transformation. Ooh, no, I wish I could like get you up here in the beehive, talk about it, but how do we, I wonder if there's a way for me to invite guests. Huh. I don't know. I'm going to try. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to see if I have your. Okay, I'm going to send you a link. I have no idea if it's going to work. Okay, let's see. If you want, just if it would make it easier, because I think you have more to say about this, and I suspect it's hard. Maybe it isn't hard to say in typing. But if you get that email from me, and if you want to try to come on, we can try it and see what happens. Kathleen and I have never done that, but this is episode 173 and a half. It's in the interim. It's in between. So I'll just keep talking about this. So where we were in the conversation, and I called this the interim just because it's an interim conversation because Kathleen's not here. So it's not really an official conversation. Okay, Victoria's going to check her email and maybe she'll come on. But let's just put that concept in there, the idea of interim. Somewhere in that, I'm assuming that I have set up some kind of structure in which to either perpetuate this, who I was in the past, or to create conditions for transformation. And I'm assuming that I've probably set some up. I'm assuming just from, what I think about and what I see in my life and where I see that I get stuck. I'm assuming there are definitely structures set up and containers set up where I keep perpetuating when I've got my head in what I think I am, rather than opening up to something I don't know I could be. And so in that interim, what is, the huge emotional displacement and rearrangement? So then Jung goes on to say, ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these people. So ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these people, are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begins to dominate them. Sorry, I was just looking at what happens afterwards, but it's just, imagine that. I'm going back to Kafka's Metamorphosis, and I've only read part of it, but I know that enough to know that this person wakes up in a different form. And it's a problem for him because he lives in an apartment and he's a huge cockroach. And I don't know about you guys, but I can imagine that I might be nervous that I might transform into a cockroach at any time. But what is that space between? And right now I'm thinking of the caterpillar and how its skin turns into the container. Victoria's here. We will now have a two-way conversation. All right. I came. All right. Hello, Victoria.
Hello. You do realize this is really early for me, and so my brain is actually working really hard every Friday morning.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's great. So you were talking about beehives and transformation in beehives. Tell me.
I like that idea that it is a place dedicated for community transformation and making something sweet. I like that idea. I feel like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly is a very lonely process. You're
Right,
doing it kind of all by yourself.
right.
Um, Whereas in the beehive, and I still think there's a lot of transformation going on, but there's different stages, there are different bees doing different things, and there's, people looking out for each other. And I feel like Hip Hop Academy is like that space.
Huh.
And I often wonder that container, because it's not like a container that we can draw for ourselves easily, but in a beehive there's a predictable structure. You can almost count on what the container looks like, but what comes out of it, I have a couple of friends that are beekeeper. It really depends on the area they're in, what flower they're feeding on. It will affect the taste of their honey. So I just thought that might be an interesting image to
Yeah,
think
well,
about.
I really love that image right now, especially because I know a lot of us are feeling kind of like uncomfortable about our society, like what is our larger community, our countries, or our world, and just the thought of a community in which there is a community in which there's transformation. And I mean, I'm really interested in bees because they're an example of colonial animals, in that the bee itself kind of doesn't exist. I mean, but the community does. So I don't know if that's scary or exciting, but I love what you're saying, which is, I mean, what I'm getting from what you're saying is a sense of hope, that
Yeah.
there is the possibility of hope within a society by the people, by the flowers that they're going to, and what they're doing together. What else do you know about the transformation of a beehive?
I don't really know a lot about it, to be honest. It's just kind of pop in your mind. But I think about what we're doing with music. And I often ask myself this question. Maybe you can tell me what you think the goal of sort of making music is. And I think a lot of it needs to come back to we're doing something for ourselves or the people around us. And I feel like B embodies that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
that sort of imagery for me. And yeah, again, I personally don't play music because I want to be on the stage. I just want to use it as a way to connect with myself and other people. And I think finding that wide, and you have to follow my train of thought here, because you were talking about container earlier, and I asked myself a question: are we more likely to turn into a butterfly or go through a transformation if someone give us that container or tell you, hey, you have this container? Or do we have to believe that we are a caterpillar right now, that we will find a container and we will transform? Like, where does our faith need to lie in order for us to say, yes, let's go for it? Do we need to sell ourselves that there's something beautiful coming out on the other side first? Or do we just need to go, you know what, we're the caterpillar right now, here's a container, something will happen, doesn't matter what it is, jump in and you'll find out. Like I was just asking myself that question earlier.
Well, yeah, I love that. I love that. And I thought so many things as you were speaking. And so I'll just go with the first one. And I know we only have a few minutes, but I thought about something that happened in Hip Hop Academy a couple days ago. Someone was, it was in an office hour or a chat. Someone jumped up and said, I'm having trouble doing, following your directions, which is set up a bass line and then add a melody. What works for me on the piano is I have a melody and then I add a bass line. And so I said, okay, let's see what that, do that for us on the harp. And then she did it on the harp, and I said something like, what's different when you do it on the piano? What's different? Like, why are you not just doing this on the harp? And she said, well, on the piano, I really love the sound of the piano, that the sound is bringing back to me. And so I said, okay, so do exactly what you did, which was noodling. Do it and listen the harp with love, like actively listen, not even listen to it, but as if it was an active thing. Listen the harp with love. What happens? And so she played again. And if the first thing that happened is her body shifted before she even played a note. And then everything she did was just completely different. It was as if someone went from being, walking down the street to being Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. And there was a radiance in it. There was something that pulled me to it and gave everyone the sense that every single note could be a beautiful thing. A single note could be this exquisite thing. So what I was thinking of this. Oh, because what was the point? Like, what was it for? I mean, it changed all of us, and it gave all of us a new opportunity to experience. And I mean, we were all harpists, but even if she was playing for non-harpists, the radiance of the thing was just palpable. I mean, suddenly there was a sun and a garden there, where before there had just been notes.
So I think that is a wonderful example of when you have a coach and a community that can observe that coaching happening,
Mm-hmm.
and that learning radiates into everyone, right? So like I see that as a big value of learning music or experimenting music in a safe group setting.
Mm-hmm.
With an expert coach that can give you those little
Mm-hmm.
tidbits that makes all that difference.
Yeah, and I'm in a bunch of different communities for different things, and they're all pretty much the same, whether they're for business or their spirituality or what they are. But they're safe containers. There's more than one person, so I get to both be on the seat where the coach is talking to me, and where I often get even more is when I can step back and observe that and get the strength from others. So what I'm getting from this about today's society, because so now I'm realizing, we're in many different layers of containers.
Yeah.
And what I'm getting is, going back to I don't know if this is your question, but the value of us showing up as musicians is that it radiates to others. And then little by little, it creates I don't know, an underpinning of love or something that can hold what's kind of happening on the outside. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and I mean, we often heard a lot of psychologists and organizational psychologists, whatever you have it, and they kind of say, human connections are important, but why? And I think it's because when we see, we believe,
Huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
And I think when we believe them, we give ourselves a little permission to say, hey, I could be that too, I think.
I'm going to pull up. Connie said, there is honey in the hive and there is royal jelly for the queen. And royal jelly is also used medically. So I think that part of what I'm hearing Connie say is that we set up our society for ourselves, and to develop whatever we're developing, but then it also becomes balm, medicine for the whole world when we become the things that make whatever creative honey and creative jelly.
Yeah.
And so I'm realizing that it is 10 and I have an appointment I have to go to. But this is great. I really love this idea of all the different containers and how our radiance expands and how it can feed others. And Victoria, and I also learned that we can pull Victoria up. So this is fun.
Yeah, it is very fun.
Yeah, this is really fun. And I'll be back here next week with Kathleen and
Awesome.
all the other weeks. And today, I think I'm clicking the button, hitting onto podcast so people can get this in other places as well. And Victoria, thank you so much. Is there any last thing that you want to say to sort of cap your experience of coming on?
Well, thanks for having me, and I think we need to keep exploring that metaphor. I like the idea of thinking about how we transform and what makes transformation possible.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And
Thank
thank you,
you.
Connie, and everybody else who joined us during this time and who will watch this afterwards. And go forth and harp on transformation. Bye.
Bye.